Welcome to Rough Drafts, How God Writes His Love in Our Stories, a podcast that explores the faith journeys of our friends and neighbors in Burns, Tennessee. Everyone has a story to tell, and in this podcast, we'll hear powerful and inspiring stories of how God works in the ordinary lives of people like you and me. Our stories are unfinished and perfectly imperfect. They are just rough drafts, a glimpse of what is to come because God is still at work, writing plot twists, introducing new characters, and bringing good even from the most challenging circumstances. Join us as we see what God is up to in our stories. Here's your host, Matthew Hyatt.
He's the pool boy. He's a cop. I don't know what he is. He's a hockey dad. You have heard from his other half already. Today, I am glad to get the rest of the story from Joey Wenck. Joey, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Excited.
I think the most important thing people need to know about you is your deep, spiritual, undying passion and dedication to Waffle House.
I love that place.
I mean,
It's never going to let me be a skinny guy, but,
you do what you got to do.
I'm apparently a regular, is what they call me. I can walk in the door and my meal is being cooked before I sit down.
See, everybody needs a place like that in their lives.
It's just become my getaway in the mornings.
Yeah. And it's close to your work.
It is. So I drive right by there on the way to the bank to do the deposit. After I get all the guys lined out, give me a little Waffle House breakfast, hit the bank for the day before's deposit, and go back to work, start the day.
What's the standard order?
At Waffle House, sausage, egg, and cheese bowl with only one hash brown.
Okay.
Not too many carbs,
Okay, you got to watch your figure.
Yeah, got to keep it a little bit healthy. Yeah.
There's no grease, but you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, I've been looking forward to this. Sierra did a great job, and I just want to hear your God story. So, go.
All right, perfect. So, a little background is right after I was born, my dad been in the military, lived in Germany for 6 years. Don't remember a lot of it because I was born and 6 years old, and then back here for the rest of my life.
Funny how that works.
Right. For the most part, grew up in the church. I guess I would be what you would consider a church mutt.
Okay.
My
It's a
dad,
new term for me, a church mud.
right? My dad being predominantly German, comes from a Lutheran background.
Yep.
So we was very active with St. John's Lutheran when they were at the old warehouse building. And then our family was involved when they broke ground for the location they're at now here in Burns. So went there most of my childhood. On the other weekends, I might stay at friends' house, and thankfully most of my friends went to church, but not all of them. And those are the ones that kind of corrupted me later in life. But so went to West Dixon Church of Christ for a little while, where I actually met Eric Petty and reminded him of that when we started going here. And I'm like, I know you.
That's funny.
Went there. We went to the Presbyterian church for a little while. When I met Sierra and started dating her in high school, they went to Midway Church of Christ.
Okay.
So went out there. Then they transitioned from Church of Christ to Methodist. So went to Greenwood Methodist for a little while. And just kind of bounced around to all different denominations. Went to Assembly of God. Never did Jehovah's Witness. I did go to a Pentecostal church because my brother's wife, that's where they go. Every church I've been to all studies the same book.
Yeah, that's the rumor.
Interpretations are just a little different sometimes. But
So what I'm really going to say is you got around, man. You really got around.
I did.
You're not a church mutt, you're a church hoe.
I learned a lot, and I finally, that's where I got the realization that in church, it's not about the building, it's about the study.
Yeah.
We're all studying from the same book.
Yeah.
And so it's, as long as we're learning the same scripture, everything's always going to be open for interpretation.
Right.
It's just, I try to tell people, I don't like it when you use one verse, but I'm going to here in a minute.
Yeah.
But it's more so, what's the verse leading up to it and the verse after? What's that whole story about?
What's the context?
Yeah. Don't just take one verse. From being a police officer, a lot of people, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. But me and Wes Boker did a Bible study when we were both working for the police department here in Dixon. And in that Bible study, it brought up that verse, and that verse is not talking about cops.
Nowhere near it.
Nowhere near it. Yeah. It's when you read the whole context, it's talking about being a peacekeeper Whether it's me, you, the neighbors here beside the church.
A peacemaker is somebody who makes it so that the cops don't need called.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I appreciate it. It is funny how many verses there are like that we kind of co-opt. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Everybody loves that verse. It's really cool. But when you read Jeremiah, he's talking about, I'm about to put you in captivity for 70 years and you're all going to die in a foreign country. And you can't not giggle a little bit every time you hear that verse at graduation speeches, because the people who are hearing the verse think, oh, sweet, God means I'm going to go to college and get married. Well, maybe, but he may also mean that you're going to go through all sorts of crap you don't want to go through.
You may meet the cops.
You may end up as one. So
right. Well, that was my destiny. I was either going to be in jail or work for the jail. So
you chose the side that pays worse. But
yes, because I've met criminals that have way more money than I have just off of their lifestyles. But
I got to say, a thing that just blew me away, like I kind of thought criminals were dumb. And
they're not.
I mean, there are some, but people who've committed crimes, well, for one, when you hear the word criminal, very few people that you meet in jail are, quote, criminals.
Correct.
Most of them are
good people made a bad choice and got caught.
Or who have a bad habit or hang out in some stupid places.
Yeah. Wrong place, wrong time.
Man, I have met some crazy smart people in there. Best artists I've ever met have been in there.
I remember one of my employees was telling me after I hired him, he was like, I know you from being a cop. I was like, how do you know me? He's like, you were at this apartment complex busting up a party one night, and we come knocking on the door, and you answered the door, and it was me, and you're like, I think it's best that you just turn around and leave. And he's like, yes, sir. And he's like, I got out of there. I was like, that's funny, because I remembered that call when he was talking about it.
How funny. One thing that's funny about the jail ministry side of things, too, is you'll meet people like that. They'll say, I know you from somewhere. And it's kind of like a counselor. Your counselor can't acknowledge you in public unless you kind of give them permission to do so.
Correct.
So I can't walk up and be like, yeah, I know you from when you were locked up, because I don't know who's around. Does this person know? And so like they'll sit there trying to figure it out sometime. I was with a guy a few weeks ago, and did I know you from such and such? No. Did I know you from such and such? No. And finally I said, I used to spend some time in Charlotte. And he goes, oh.
Yeah.
And then he just nodded. I'm like, okay. Yeah. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed of it, but I don't want to.
And that adds to their story too, especially if they find God. Because one thing I've learned that it's a lot easier to witness to somebody sometimes when you've got more of a tainted background. Mm-hmm. Right out of high school, I thought it would be fun doing martial arts my whole life.
Yeah.
Then I decided I would just go to the bars and get in fights and start fights, and I was doing the rodeo thing, riding bulls and drinking Bud Light and smoking Marlboro Reds. And I mean, it was just that wild party side of life that, it's a fun chapter of life. I'm glad that I wisened up, or actually I got broke because I sucked at riding bulls. So I never won any money.
Yeah.
Just spent a lot of it because it's not a cheap hobby.
No.
Buddy of mine, he made it to the big times. He rides in the PBR.
Really?
He's made his claim to fame and a lot of fortune. I'm proud of him because he's just a local guy from Paris, Tennessee.
I tried to talk Leslie into letting us get a mechanical bull for Bird's family camp, but renting them was like $3,000, and I couldn't justify spending that much.
So Sierra and I used to own a bounce house business.
Did you really?
And during that time, it was one of those things. It was time to either jump in both feet, take out a big loan and invest a lot, and quit law enforcement, or stay where I was safe.
Yeah.
And I was with kids at home. I was too scared to make that plunge, so I stayed where I was safe, and I just sold the business to a friend.
Yeah.
But that was one of my investments I was getting ready to buy, was a mechanical bull.
Those things are expensive.
They are super expensive.
That and the insurance on them is not. Evidently, a significant number of people get maimed on them every year.
Man, just having bounce houses.
Yeah, they're dangerous.
Young guy starting his first business, sitting down with Marshall Fuson trying to get insurance because liability, want to make sure I'm covered if little Billy Bob falls down and bumps his head, and for whatever reason I'm not at their house, it's their party, they rented it, but it's going to come back to me.
Right.
I did not realize how expensive insurance was.
Yeah.
And because it's a entertainment inflatable, it comes with a higher risk liability than like somebody with a desk business.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that
yeah,
was,
I mean, my main liability here is a paper cut or something,
right. But those do hurt.
I drowned somebody baptizing him. I don't think that happens real often, It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, so you grew up as a church mutt.
Yes. And then got away from the church right out of high school. Sierra and I, we started dating in high school on and off. She'd break up with me. We'd get back together. I'd break up with her. It was kind of like a little game of tag you're it.
Yeah.
She moved off to college. I moved off to the bars. I never wanted to go to college. That just wasn't my gig.
Yeah.
I wanted to just go straight to making money. I just chose all the wrong places because nowhere I worked paid really good.
Right.
But so I got past that point in life, and Sierra and I ran into each other, as we always ended up doing so, and we got back together. And long story short, got married. And in 2007,
Okay.
I'm all over the place. So in 2007, 2 years before we got married, so backing up a little bit, I decided to go into law enforcement before I was arrested by law enforcement.
Right.
And I started working at the jail under Tom Walsh administration. And I think I did a pretty good job. A lot of the inmates there had respect for me. I didn't try to go badge heavy on them and discipline them for dumb stuff.
Yeah.
It's a give and take, and you show respect, whether it's because they're in there for a bad reason.
Yeah.
But it could be a one-time thing.
Yeah.
In 2009, I got transferred to patrol.
Okay.
There was a lot of concerns because I had to have surgery on my lung in 2007. So they were worried about me being able to make it through the academy. They was worried about me being able to do the job. You get in a foot chase with somebody and you've only got one fully functional lung. It can potentially be a problem.
Slow you down a little.
And so they took the chance, threw the dice, rolled the risk, and I went to the academy and I did exceptional. Graduated probably middle of my class because that was the advice everybody gave me. You don't want to be first, you don't want to be last because those are the two picked on.
Yeah.
So I just kind of rode in the middle and survived it. Ended up in a foot chase one night, and I chased this dude for 300 yards at a dead sprint.
Yeah.
And now once I caught him, I laid on top of him, and I was like, if you move, this is not going to end well for you.
Yeah.
Because I had no move left.
Right.
Once I stopped, it was done.
No, the end.
But that instance proved that even with my surgery that I had, I was still capable of fully functioning in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess maybe talk about the surgery a little bit.
I was about to ask you.
I saw you make a note, so let's just go ahead and jump to that.
You mentioned it a little bit in our Thanksgiving episode. You were one of the people who shared a thing you were thankful for. You said you were thankful for staples.
Yes. So in 2007, June 25th, to be exact, I go to the ER. I'm working at the pool store, and I start feeling like somebody stabbing me from my shoulder all the way down to my hip. It was just nonstop and gradually getting worse. Go to the ER, took some x-rays, diagnosed me with inflammation in the pleura, which is the lining of the lung that holds it to the rib cage, and sent me home. Well, I go back to work because they don't pay my bills now. I got a hospital bill to pay for nothing. I sat at work for maybe 30 minutes. I had to call my parents to come get me.
Really?
I could not function. I could not drive. My parents come get me. We're walking through the front door. The phone's ringing. So Dad grabs the phone. It's the ER. Hey, we need you to come back. We found something. The worst thing you could ever hear in your life is we found something from the ER doctor.
We want you to come back is not good.
Yeah. So we get back and come to find out 10% of my lung is collapsed.
Okay.
They don't have a cause for it. It's the medical term is spontaneous pneumothorax. Okay. So it's just random collapsing of the lung. It's basically my lung was forming little blisters, if you will, and they were popping, and too many of them at a time, pushing too much air against the outside of my lung. Had the surgeon come in, and in the ER, he just does a little chest tube down to my lung, which would let all that air escape, but it had like a check valve so no air could get back in.
Gotcha.
So it would let it inflate itself back up.
Okay.
Stayed in the hospital, I think, 2 or 3 days. Went home with this tube hanging out of my chest. That was fun.
Yeah, that feels good.
Yeah. And then 2 weeks of that, go back, they remove it. Life's good. Everything's fine. Started working at the sheriff's office September of that year. Okay. In December, I'm getting up, taking a shower, getting ready for a day of training on how to be a better correctional officer. Okay. And in the shower, I felt something weird, and I was like, instantly knew what it was. So go back to the ER. They got the same surgeon.
Yeah.
And he's like, Joey, he said, it's happened twice. He's like, first time, 20% chance maybe of it ever happening again.
Yeah.
Second time, 60%. Third time, 100%. It's going to keep doing it. So he sent me to Nashville to a thoracic specialist who went in and did this crazy surgery that I was asleep through, so I don't know.
That's the best part.
That's the best part. Some of the best medicines come out of those surgeries too. Had to wear this tube. It was about the size of your pinky tube coming out between my ribs. And it was the same thing as that little check valve I had.
Yeah.
Wore that, I think, for 3 days, and he come in and took it out. And when he took it out, it hurt extremely bad. And he was concerned. He said it shouldn't hurt. He said it should feel weird but not hurt. I was like, well, you just pulled like 1.5 feet of tube out of my rib cage.
Yeah.
I expect that to hurt.
That feels like it should hurt.
So the next day, I'm up. They're making me get up and walk around the hospital, keep you moving. And I was short of breath, real short of breath. And so they sent me to x-ray. My lung collapsed again. My surgeon is in the room, like apologizing, losing his marbles because he's like, I've been doing this for 20 something years and I've never had this happen. It's like, you've never had me.
Congratulations.
I'm that special guy. Yeah. So the radiologist redid the small chest tube just to let it, maybe he was thinking maybe he didn't give the talc powder time to set up good enough before he took the tube out. So I wore that small tube for about a week in the hospital. And then when they took that out, it went right back down. So here we are. All of us are getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And I go back into the surgery. Well, it was an 1.5-hour procedure just to remove what he did before he could start over. When he started over, the way he described it to me, he basically filled my lung up and found all these little blisters that were just constantly forming. So he cut that 10% out, and then he went through my back with this little staple gun that spits staples out 3 staples wide, but I think the total width is like 1/2 inch. Okay. And sewed them all the way around, and then covered my lung with this talc-like powder and blew it up and glued it to my ribs. So then he had to make the joke, well, at least in law enforcement, if you're going to get in a shootout, get shot on the right side, that lung will never collapse again. So that's always been my running joke with that. But it was a crazy situation. Yeah. Went into the hospital on December 3rd and got discharged on Christmas Eve.
Oh, good grief.
So long time for a young kid to be in the hospital.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
How many staples did they put in you?
He said around 3,000.
Good grief.
But they're all surgical stainless, so I don't set off metal detectors. So
I bet you light up an x-ray real fun.
They do. And that ailment, if you will, is he said it's common in tall, slender, young white males. I was 21 years old at the time and 6 foot, 180 pounds.
Yeah.
And
there you were.
I did not know that there was a disease delegated just to me. So I'm
congratulations.
Special.
Yeah, the doctor walked in. He said, I've got good news and bad news. He said, tell me the good news. Well, they're going to name it after you. That's all you got. So,
right.
Okay, so you've had that in your background when you head into law enforcement. So
Correct.
That definitely makes the academy, that profession.
It did make it a little concerning starting out. But then after getting my feet wet, so to speak, getting through the academy, getting through the FTO program, running my own patrol car at the sheriff's office, I got to where it didn't bother me as much.
Yeah.
Up until that time frame, I was super sensitive. Like, I would lose my cool if somebody even touched my side.
Yeah.
I was very coddling of it, I guess.
Yeah.
And then in 2011, I don't know if you knew this or not, but cops don't make a lot of money.
I've heard.
And neither do teachers.
Yes.
And so when a cop is married to a teacher,
yeah,
and they have children or a child at that moment, life's hard.
It is.
Who knew life was hard when you're young and you just came out of high school where you knew everything and your parents were done?
Living
Who knew?
on love, man.
Yeah. So during that time, I had to work extra jobs. I did security at the hospital, traffic control. Yeah. Off-duty cops make way better than on-duty cops.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And
so
doing, I don't mean to disrespect it, but doing dumb crap like sitting outside a parking garage saying it's full for 6 hours, you make 3 times what you made actually chasing bad guys.
I worked for a company out of Nashville who was contracted with AT&T. So when you see these AT&T trucks with the trailer behind it, those guys are actually splicing fiber lines. Not that I don't know where that's important, but either way, it's what they do. And they pay this other company to provide traffic control for them.
Yeah.
90% of the time, those AT&T guys aren't even in the road.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in a truck behind them, watching Netflix, playing a video game on my phone, checking on them every so often, make sure they didn't, whatever. When they're ready to hook the line back up, I get out and I stop traffic. They take 10 minutes, do their thing, and we're done.
Yeah.
It's great. Easy money.
Yeah.
But I was doing that. So I got off shift I was on second shift. So that was over at 11. Had to be at the hospital at midnight. Just prior to going on the shift, I just got off a 6-hour shift at the hospital.
Okay.
So I'd been up for well over 24 hours.
That's good for you.
Again, Sierra and I not having a lot of money.
Yeah.
We had one vehicle. It was a nice vehicle. It was brand new. My first brand new truck I ever bought.
Do you feel the foreshadowing coming in this part of the story?
Yeah. So I get up, Sierra's getting ready. I'm tended to Isaac and drive her to school. She was teaching at United Christian Academy, which cuts teachers' pay even lower because private schools,
Yes.
unfortunately, don't pay as well because the tuition cost is there to cover all the expenses, payroll, and everything thereof. So I used to look at a private school as parents got a lot of money and the teachers make bank.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily the case. A lot of kids in private school come from lower income families that just want to do better.
Yeah.
Dropped her off, and I was headed to take Isaac to my mom's house.
Okay.
Because cops got to be in shape.
Yeah.
Drop Isaac off, go to the gym, work out, go home, take a nap, go back to work.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, had a bad wreck.
Yeah.
I remember laying in grass.
It's never a good sign when one moment you're driving, next you're in grass.
Yeah, I remember the impact. I remember getting out of the truck and the wet grass, the dew on that grass was the best feeling I've ever had.
Really?
And the first person I saw, I just cried, my baby.
Yeah.
So got a 9-month-old kid. When I see him, covered in blood. Thankfully, it was all like just small nicks from the glass shattering.
Yeah.
I didn't really have many injuries.
Yeah.
I got a nice scar on my shin where the dashboard scraped it. Got a little scar on my foot where it got caught under the pedal and I jerked it out from under the pedal. Okay. I know my kids joke about me being bald, and some of that baldness is from my family. Thankfully, my family's got real good genes. I was destined to be bald. I just sped it up.
Yeah.
Both my mom's side and my dad's side, all the men are bald. So it was going to happen. But when I had the wreck, my head went into the headliner because I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. And as the centrifugal force sent me straight up and then over as the airbag hit me in the stomach. So the headliner got a lot of my hair, and what the headliner didn't get, the windshield took. So it was a fun moment, I guess, if you will.
I think you used the word fun wrong.
I did. But that's just how I've come to accept it. So brand new truck, had 5,000 miles on it, made 2 or 3 payments. It's no longer a truck.
Yeah.
The first vehicle I hit, so I was coming down Beasley Drive.
Okay.
Walmart. So past Walmart, so the section between 48 right there by Ticey Springs and the electric department.
The kind of nowhere section.
Yeah. And it's got a slight bend in it as you're coming around. Well, I straightened that bend out.
Okay.
The only section with a guardrail, thankfully, because it's got a big drop off.
Okay.
I guess I fell asleep driving is the best that we could come up with.
Yeah.
And I sideswiped my passenger side to the passenger side of a vehicle going the other way. That's how far over I was.
Wow. Okay.
And totaled that car. And then I hit a Jeep head on. And
man,
during that situation, buddy of mine goes, picks Sierra up, brings her to the crash site, which probably wasn't the best idea.
Sierra tells that story.
And
by the way, Joey hasn't heard what Sierra has recorded at the moment.
I have not heard her story yet. we leave the crash site and go to the ER, where I've been working at the ER. So I understand the stress that this staff is under,
Right.
which makes you a better patient.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in there strapped on this spine board, neck collar on, immobile,
Yeah.
because they haven't done a CT scan to see if anything's
Terribly
needing
wrong.
surgery or can. So I'm hurting, but the doctor was really good to me, and I remember asking for something for pain.
Yeah.
And some time had went by, and my mom and Sierra's both started to get aggravated. They're like, "Why are they not bringing you pain meds?" I'm like, "Just calm down. There's something else that's more important, probably.
Yeah.
I'm not that important." And as far as like my circumstance,
Right. Triage.
And
you're not actively dying.
yeah, and come to find out, the boy that I wrecked into lost his life.
That's tough.
That's real tough. He was young, 23. That was a hard thing to live with.
Yeah.
I'm off work. Thankfully, in law enforcement, they do have a good network
Yeah.
of stress management.
Right.
So there's a guy named Peter Cove. I'll never forget this guy. He taught a class at the academy, and my training supervisor set me up with him. And what his whole job is in this LEAPS program is to connect officers across the state with other officers that have already gone through that circumstance.
So you're not alone.
So, an officer that's involved in a shooting isn't going to help me.
Right.
But he connected me with 4 different officers that were involved in car crashes that turned fatal.
Yeah.
And some of them were while they were at work. Some of them were like me, off work. That helped a little bit. They came by and checked on me a lot. But, as anything else, as time goes on, things start to slow down.
Yeah.
And then you're left feeling in the dark.
Right.
So there was one moment I was in the house. At that point, we were living in a house that had extra bedrooms because we just had one kid at the moment.
Yeah.
And so one bedroom was dedicated to all my cop stuff, so I could lock my guns and everything away from Isaac's little baby hands
Right.
from getting to. And we had a bed. It was a spare bedroom, so if companies came over, it was accessible. But I was in there getting ready for work, and I was done,
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there looking at my gun, thinking about just being done.
Yeah.
And thankfully for God, he sent Sierra. So as I'm sitting on this bed thinking about this, I hear footsteps. Obviously, I did not want her to walk in and see nothing.
Yeah.
And so I hid my gun under my mattress like a kid.
Yeah.
As I'm wearing my full uniform, and I got an empty holster, and I'm hiding my gun because I'm a kid now. And Sierra comes in just tell me she loved me.
Yeah.
And I was able to get out of my headspace. It was my first day, I think, going back to work from the wreck.
Okay.
So we're probably 2 or 3 weeks after the fact. I was off work for a week and a half, and I wasn't ready to go back to work. So the doctor extended my time off, and we had a family vacation plan. So I thought that would be good to just get away. You can't get away.
Well, no, that's going to be with you.
Well, that, and we're on a cruise in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
On a snorkeling adventure.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there just chilling, catching my breath.
Yeah.
And the lifeguard that's on the boat is just carrying on a small conversation. And this other lady that was there, she was like, "What part of Tennessee are you from?" I was like, "A small town outside Nashville called Dixon." She's like, "Really? Where at in Dixon?" I was like, "Well, I live over off 48 South." She's like, "I live on North Charlotte Street." This lady ends up in the Bahamas with me.
Yeah.
She works at Burns Elementary.
Okay.
My cousin was the principal at the time. So
Yeah.
we have all these connections. And she's like, "Where do you work?" And I told her, and she's like, "Do you know that poor deputy that had that wreck?" I was like, "Yes, ma'am, that was me." I've never seen somebody's face go so blank and swim away so fast from conversation. It was a moment. But it was like, man, I just can't escape this.
Right.
And it took a lot. And that was when I really found God. Like, I was christened at the Lutheran Church when I was 13. And then I was baptized at Free Will Baptist as an adult because in the faith, the Bible talks about water baptism and full submission, and to be involved at the church, and to be members, you had to be baptized.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and lost my train of thought where I was going with that for a second.
You were talking a little bit about how you kind of find God in this.
So
you had been christened.
Yes.
But now.
But everybody talks about that aha moment. Well, this was my aha moment. Like as cliche as it sounds, I just broke down and I bawled like a baby. And I just prayed for God to take the burden away.
Yeah.
And it was instant. I mean, absolute instant, that I just felt a ton of bricks off my back.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I knew, one, look, God is real.
Yeah.
And so the verse I mentioned earlier that I was going to mention, the one verse when you should really look at the whole context of the whole scripture, but this verse helped get me through that. And I remember there was a part of this verse in the Bible. I just did not know where. So I go to my preacher at the Free Will Baptist. I was like, I give him this one little snippet to test his knowledge.
There you go.
And before I finish, he's like 1 Corinthians 10:13.
Okay.
And so that's become, I guess, my life verse.
Yeah.
I go by it. And I'm going to read it real quick. I like the New King James Version the best. It says, "No temptation has overtaken you except such as common to man, but God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make a way of escape that you will be able to bear it." And when I broke that verse down, line by line, like whether you classify temptation as peer pressure,
right,
or just regular daily life, like everything we do in life is a temptation.
Yeah.
Whether we choose to drink water or soda, are we tempted to drink sugars or something better for us? And for me, my struggle was with the wreck. Like that was my temptation pulling my faith.
Yeah.
And so when I broke that verse down, like the most powerful part, God's faithful.
Yeah.
He just wants us to need him and to come to him. And when I did, and I felt that burden gone, then I was like, man, it's all coming together, because he gave me the way to escape. The way to escape anything is through God. And now looking back, he put something on me that I'm able to bear.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people probably couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think I could. And now I've been able to use that. When I was a cop arresting people, like I've been at the bottom of the barrel. I know where you're at tonight, and when you have somebody arrested in the back of your patrol car, that is the most captive audience to witness to. Like they can't go nowhere. They can act like they're ignoring you, but you still hear people when they're talking.
Yeah.
And I was given multiple opportunities to witness to people.
Yeah.
Witness to a young girl who tried to commit suicide. And she was in a bad situation. Her house was broken. Her mom and her mom's girlfriend were living together. Dad and stepmom was living together. And she was just so confused with life.
Yeah.
And I'm taking her from her mom's house to her dad to get her away from the situation at the moment that was causing stress.
Right.
And during that time, I'm listening to her. And a group of friends of mine, they have a Christian band. They climbed the charts all the way, or not the charts, but the ladder all the way to the top, and then realized that wasn't where they wanted their ministry. So they gave up a record deal and everything.
Oh, that's cool.
But in their first album they released, the band's About a Mile. I don't know if you've heard of them. All three boys live here in Dixon. They moved from Pennsylvania. Really cool group of guys. But in one of their songs, it's called SOS.
Okay.
And I never really put that song into the context it was written until I watched their video to it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's about a person struggling and thinking about ending life and then finding God and giving all the burdens to God. So I'm playing this song to this young girl.
Yeah.
And we're witnessing to her and telling her, hey, I've been there. I know what it's like. And I've never ran across paths with this girl again. I don't know if it helped her or not.
Yeah.
I know it got me wrote up because apparently you're not supposed to talk church to people, especially minors, when you're working for the government. But I didn't care. Something's bigger. But it gave me such a platform to stand on. And then I decided I was tired of working 3 and 4 jobs.
Yeah.
Especially after an incident like that. So
You don't want to live life for you.
a little further down the road, we now have 3 kids. And while
They know what causes that.
they do, They do. We figured it out. We fixed that problem.
Okay.
And so after we come home from the hospital with Zoe, my current boss and his wife, they brought us a casserole dinner.
Yeah.
And while we're there hanging out, because me and him have been friends, I started at the pool store in 05 after my buddy convinced me to work there for free.
Yeah.
And I finally asked for a paycheck.
Yeah.
And we just grew a friendship from there.
Yeah.
And he made me an offer to come run his business.
Yeah.
And I told him what I made working 4 jobs, and he's like, well, I can't touch that.
Yeah.
He's like, this is the best that I can do. And I was like, I will find a way to make that work.
Yeah.
And I did. And it's blossomed from there. And it's been so peaceful not having to go from one job to the next job and never see your family.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time Zoe's born, Isaac's now 4 years old, something like that. And I don't remember really those 4 years because I was always gone working.
And that's what's so tough about all of the kind of first responder jobs. You know, almost everybody has the main job, and then maybe they have the exact same job, but for another department. Maybe they just do side work or contract work. Maybe they have a side hustle. Maybe they cut grass.
Exactly.
Everybody has 18 jobs. And
public servants is, it's a career chosen out of loyalty and love, not for finances. Yeah. And, you know, if Sierra would have become a doctor, I could have still played police.
Well, she wanted to.
She did want to be a doctor. That's when I proposed to her. I thought I was going to be retired at 30. And joke's on me, she changed that to teaching.
Man. Well, why don't you go become a doctor?
I don't like school. I tried college when I was a cop because to make it anywhere in that career, you got to have a criminal justice degree.
Yeah.
And I tried the online college. I tried the brick and mortar college. It wasn't for me. So now I'm paying back college loans for nothing. But, you know, I'm really blessed where I'm at now because during the summer, they don't get to see me a lot. I'll put in 70, 80 hours a week.
Pool season's rough.
Pool season is rough, but I enjoy it. It's a fun rough. I love my job.
And no one's shooting at you.
Not yet. It's never happened. So knock on wood. I've had some pretty upset customers.
Yeah.
When their pool is not pretty and it's my fault because they buy Walmart chemicals.
Yeah.
You know, I'm supposed to be able to fix that. And
it's your fault that they have trees that fill it with leaves or.
Exactly.
You know, they haven't done anything to it in 3 months and they can't figure out what
they put the one chemical I recommended to put in 6 months ago and now the pool's still green.
Yeah.
I don't get it. One day we'll figure that out. But it's a blessing and a burden at times.
You got to explain this to me. We have a hot tub. Right. And Leslie is a chemist. She is an analytical chemist. She has a doctorate in chemistry. Why am I the one who has to figure out what to do to the water to the hot tub? What's the deal?
That's just that's the way it always works out.
It's so funny. We first got it. She started reading it, and then she started trying to explain to me the chemistry behind all this stuff. I'm like, Leslie, I don't need to know the chemistry. I just need to know I add half an ounce of this, you know?
Yeah. And it's all a guessing game. I mean, there's measurements on the bottles and you can get it down to an exact science.
Yeah.
But even when I treat the water in the baptistry, I check it, the pH and the chlorine, and then I add a dose of pH down if it's high.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the correct dose. I stir it around and I check it. Oh, I got it right. We're good.
Hey,
don't need to add nothing else.
That's funny. Even the hot tub, I mean, it's nowhere near as hard as a pool just because there's so much more water in a pool, but
it's opposite.
Oh, really?
Hot water in smaller body is harder to maintain than a big body of water.
I guess that makes sense because a little bit changes it quickly.
Exactly. It's like a fish tank.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have a small aquarium is 10 times harder than those 200-gallon aquariums.
That's true. Yeah, I thought about that. No, the good thing is if I do it wrong, I can drain the water and refill it in an afternoon and just call it quits.
Right.
You know?
Where was I going to go?
I think I just ruined your train of thought, didn't I?
Yeah, a little brain fart there.
It's not the first time it's happened. Well, you just kind of told the story of your testimony. You told the story of, how God kind of got hold of you and said, here I am.
Absolutely. And I was able to take that testimony and walk streets in Cuba when I was at First Baptist.
Yeah.
And we witnessed I think me and my partner personally witnessed to at least 100, 125 people. Wow. The group as a whole between the two cities we're in witnessed to close to 1,000.
That's cool.
And during that week we was there, they told us that there was over 300 professions of faith made. Wow. The first testimony I ever gave, they had it broke down into prayer houses. So the way the town is made up, over there, they don't have a lot of cars.
Right.
There's not a lot of money. And so a lot of people, their health or distance, they can't make it to church.
Yeah.
So the preacher would set up prayer houses in every little community.
Yeah.
And so on Tuesday nights, they would gather there and they would praise and worship and devotions.
Yeah.
And so that's who would orchestrate where we went to witness. We'd go to the prayer houses and they would bring people in.
They'd kind of show you what to do.
And the first one I ever shared my testimony with, this family had this young boy. He was 11. And this kid looked like he had an autopsy done. He had a true Y scar on his chest. He had a rare heart disease, had to have open heart surgery. Wow. And that just shows how their medicine is so much different than ours. Because, this was in 2018, 19 when I went. So, medicine's pretty far advanced. Like open heart surgery was of now smaller scars. Yeah. But not down there.
Right.
And they didn't expect this kid to live. Like, I'm sitting there hearing this story like, y'all should be listening to this kid. Like, this is proof of faith right here.
Yeah.
And it was really humbling. Like, my very first testimony to ever share, I got humbled by somebody else's. Mm-hmm. And it was more, as cliche as it is, I think I got more out of that mission trip than I provided.
That's what everybody who does any of those trips experiences. You realize just how, we may have more material blessings. We may have more stuff, toys, houses, but Jesus, in Luke's gospel, he just said, "Blessed are the poor."
Yeah.
Maybe he meant it.
Absolutely.
Those trips, though, man, they do something for you. They are powerful. They're powerful.
You come back on fire. When you come back it's almost like when I go to a pool conference. When I get back after all this management training, like, I'm about to fix everything that's wrong with this business. We're going to make millions of dollars.
That's right.
Hasn't happened yet, but I'm trying.
Every house in Dixon's going to have a pool, whether they need it or not.
Exactly. But you come back out of those moments of you're on fire. Like, everything you want to do, you want to serve, you want to preach, you want to share. And I think it's good for everybody to have that experience. Sierra got that experience. I think she probably shared some of that.
She talked about India. That was
hers was a interesting trip, but that's all her story. I don't know what all she shared because I haven't heard it yet, so I don't want to throw too much out there.
She talked about the thing that made that trip exceptionally difficult.
Yeah. The Chris situation was very hard.
Yeah.
And then trying to figure out how to get back.
Yeah.
And keeping your mouth shut because they wouldn't let you back if they heard something like that happen.
Yeah. It's tricky. Even our Honduras thing, our flights got canceled.
Oh man, y'all had a
hunted 24
crazy
hours.
Time.
We ended up making the decision to drive home because we're in Miami. And I'm glad we did because I know that our first 3 flights the next day were all significantly late. So I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have gotten home that day. I think it would have been another day by the time the system recovered enough. And we were all beyond ready to get back. And that was in America. It was a simple problem. Thanks be to God, I have a credit card and a driver's license, and if you have those 2 things, you can have a rental car and you can get home.
Exactly.
To be in India.
Yeah. Whew. Now, I will say I became very, very close in love with the Miami airport.
Yeah.
Because we stopped there on the way back from Cuba. Everybody says, don't drink the water, and it'll do bad things to good people. I didn't drink the water, but I didn't think about the ice cubes.
Yeah, the ice cubes will get you.
Yeah, so we had a 12-hour layover in Miami, and I was very thankful for that.
You spent all 12 hours on the throne.
I was miserably sick for almost all 12 hours.
Praying the whole time.
Yes.
God take me. God take me.
It was interesting, but I wouldn't trade that trip for anything.
Yeah.
And then you just continuously add to your story.
Yeah.
Life's not a paved road of gold.
No, and that's what's so important about this. These aren't my stories to tell. Like, I don't get to come here to tell my story or other people's stories. I ask people to come here to tell their stories. But there are at least 2 other people that I know of that have been connected to this church who have a story very similar to your Rex story. Mm-hmm. And who had to navigate the feelings of guilt and what if and shame and fear. And
I got really... when I was driving down the road listening to Coco's story, because I remember when he had that wreck. That's very, very close similarities.
Yeah.
The one thing that I can be thankful for, because when a cop is involved in a wreck of that magnitude,
Yeah.
it makes national news.
You've got a target on your back.
I was all over the media. The local media was posting it as I wasn't involved, but I caused it.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're not wrong, but it's all about what's going to sell.
Yeah.
And so the best thing that could have happened to me during that circumstance was the officer that worked the wreck. He had conversed with some of the highway patrol because the city of Dixon, they work all of their wrecks no matter how severe they are.
Right.
Unless it's one of their own. And at that time I wasn't. I was at the sheriff's office.
Right.
And one of the troopers, he told the investigating officer, he said, you do everything you can to get an indictment and put him in jail. Because then if they don't indict, you washed your hands clean doing everything you could.
Yeah.
And he had a file. He took a good-sized file to the grand jury. He presented his case, had testimony from the boy's mom.
Yeah.
And then the grand jury decided that there was no
true bill.
there was no true bill of indictment issued because it was truly an accident. There was no
gross negligence.
No gross negligence. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. And I was very thankful for that because I'm not built for jail.
No. Well, you're not that cute, but no, and I mean, jail's hard, but it's hard for a cop.
And my family, they extended their gratitude, or not gratitude, that's a horrible word to use. Wow. Yeah. They extended their condolences and went to the visitation of the young boy.
Yeah.
And then here we are a few years later, managing the pool store. Hire a kid. This kid goes to work for me. He's driving because my service guy at the moment couldn't drive. And so this guy, he's helping my service guy by chauffeuring him and being his helping hands on the job sites. Yeah. They come in one afternoon, and I see this tattoo on his arm. Right. And it was a memorial tattoo for the same name that I had a wreck against. And I was like, man. And so I just pulled him off to the side, like, let's get the elephant out of the ring.
Yeah, we need to talk about
I was like, hey, man, there's nothing you can say right now that's going to hinder your position here. Whatever you got to say to me, get it off your chest. You know who I am.
Yeah.
And he did. And he's like, man, for years, he said, I just wanted you dead.
Yeah.
He said, I wanted to torture you. I wanted to make you suffer. He's like, but now that I work for you and I see you, who you really are, not who I thought you were, just being a cop and me being the opposite end of that at his time of life. He's like, you were just a husband and a dad trying to make his way. He's like, and I hate that you have to wear that on your shoulders. Yeah. And it was a really good bonding moment for he and I. He was able to lose some of his hate and discontent towards me. And, we was able to be weird guys for a moment and just kind of hug and cry on each other's shoulder for a minute. And every year on the anniversary of the wreck, I ask him how he's doing, and he asks me how I'm doing, and we go about work.
Yeah. Well, it's significant that that's kind of a piece that goes both directions, and you don't always get that, You don't always get that at all.
It makes it hard. And then when you go down the road, I think Sierra talked a little bit about this, and her story was she and I ended up having issues.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know, but we're not legally married. Yeah. We did go through a divorce. There was just a time of where we both just didn't feel like each other wanted to be around each other anymore. Yeah. We did counseling. Counseling was amazing. I almost encourage everybody, whether your marriage is good or not. Every marriage probably has some hidden secret that they don't know about each other. And it's good to get that out.
And I think about the things that you guys brought into your marriage. And I'm not getting too deep into your stories because those are, again, your stories to tell. But the life of a police officer is very hard on a relationship.
It is. Financial
stress is hard on a relationship. Complicated grief is hard on a relationship. And you take all that stuff together and mix together with the fact that, her parents weren't together. Your families of origin were very different in how they did things.
Yeah.
I'm not making excuses, but people don't understand just how easy it is to get there.
It's very easy, I think. Communication is key. And we got to a point where we was not communicating good.
Yeah.
we both kind of just drowned ourselves in work and the children, and that was kind of our escape. Because we felt alone. I felt like she wasn't interested in me anymore, and she felt the same about me. And it doesn't take long for that feeling to spiral.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I'm stubborn, and I was not going to let her just walk away.
Yeah.
So I fought for her, and we was able to finally figure it out, and I think it's made us better.
What's cool is, without you guys telling me this is not a story I ever would have known. Like, I wouldn't have looked at the two of you and gone, oh man, they sure had a lot of trouble. You know what I mean?
When I told my boss about it initially, that I told him, I was like, I think Sierra and I was going to get a divorce.
Yeah.
He's like, man, if y'all get a divorce, there's no hope for any of us. Like, we did really good at putting on a fake persona.
On a show.
Everybody thought everything was gravy. Facebook reality is not as real as people think. But I feel like we both had really good support when the trouble arose. Like, we found out who was really close to us, who our friends were. Our family was there for us. And I hate that we had to go through all of that.
Yeah.
I hate it for the kids, because that was a tough time of life.
Yeah.
I mean, after she moved out, the nights that she had the kids, I didn't want to be in the house by myself.
Yeah.
So I found myself at the bar.
Yeah.
I lived at the bar. I had one goal in life during that moment, and that was to destroy my liver. And thankfully I was unsuccessful, but I've probably done some damage.
Your lungs weren't enough, so you had to finish off your liver.
Exactly. Got to go after something different.
That's right.
But
how's your spleen doing?
Right. And it was a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And once we got back together, it took a lot.
Yeah.
To break those habits. You know, I've always been a person that says that I don't feel like there's anything wrong with consuming alcohol, as long as you don't take it too far.
Right.
During that time, I was taking it too far.
Right.
Doing things that I shouldn't do. And thankfully it was just me in an alcoholic bottle versus me and just trying to find peace with another person.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's a story that could have had a whole lot of different bad endings. That's a story
really
that
could have
led to a wreck. That's a story that could have led to a really awful relationship.
Yeah. And thankfully we have been able to get ourselves together and become a family.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm hoping that as our kids grow up, they can see that families are hard, but with good work and the right amount of faith, you're able to get through it.
Man, I saw this thing on Facebook. It said, marriage is hard, divorce is hard, choose your hard.
I saw that same one before I got rid of Facebook. My life is such a nice little, I live in my own bubble now.
Oh, do you want me to just read some nasty comments from Tip Dixon for you? It's like people yelling at each other.
I have no social media. I watch Hulu, so I don't get commercials.
Man.
I don't see the news. Like, I'm just in my little bubble of life where I go to work and I have my family and we're in this chapter of life, and it's
but you're
great.
happier that way.
Man, you're so much less stressed when
If I could give everybody some advice, it would be unplug. If not forever, take one of your social media outlets and just turn it off.
Or just put the whole phone down for one day. One day a week alone, or an hour every evening. Just no technology, just time.
Yeah.
Time in the Bible, time in thought, prayer,
outside,
conversation.
See the stars.
Yeah. Whatever it is, just time.
Play with a rock, you know?
Yeah.
Man.
That's how it was when we were kids. Mm-hmm. We didn't have social media. I didn't even have a cell phone in high school.
Well, this is my soapbox, but I think the world was a way better place before 24-hour cable news, because when the news was on at 5 and 10,
mm-hmm.
they had 3 minutes to tell you the story, and then it was on to the next story and they were done. But now that it's on 24/7, they have to fill the air. So somebody's going to get up there and talk, and they're either going to make up stuff or they're going to speculate.
Yeah,
or then they're going to move to the emotions. And the whole point of news is to make you angry so that you keep watching.
Exactly, because good news doesn't sell.
No.
Everybody wants to feed into somebody else's drama.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part of the world we're living in. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that's it's going to take a big awakening to change that mentality.
Ooh, yeah. Well, Joey, man, this has been fun.
It's been a blast.
Is there a story you haven't got to tell you'd like to?
I think we covered most all of it.
I mean, we didn't cover anything significant or deep or painful at all. So.
No, not at all.
This was a light and easy, refreshing podcast.
It was. It was great.
I almost wish we could do like a watch party where you and Sierra listen to each other and then we recorded y'all responding to it so we can watch y'all like, hitting each other at various stages.
The good thing is, no matter what I've said or what she has said, because again, I haven't heard hers, and obviously we're recording this right now, so she hasn't heard it.
Correct.
But there's nothing that either one of us could say that, especially after going through what we went through with our marriage and the counseling, nothing is hidden.
There's no surprise.
There's not surprises between us now.
That's awesome.
It makes a world of difference.
Ooh, it sure does. Well, Joey, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time to share your story and share some real stuff. This was good. This was good. Well, friends, thanks for listening. You know where to find us. We'll see you again. And until next time, we can't wait to hear what God is up to in your story.
Thanks for listening to Rough Drafts. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you are at it, help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review. Until next time, let's keep looking for how God writes His love into our stories.